So the United States is blindly headed towards World War III. Those are the reports that we've been getting. We've been hearing more and more reports coming from other countries saying that the U.S. is the target. Now, we heard just recently that there were reports that Russia is going to impact the upcoming election. But why? Well, it's simple. Many other countries would rather have Vice President Kamala Harris as the United States president because she would be much easier to control and manipulate than former President Donald Trump. So, what I'm going to show you today is shocking. We are hearing more and more reports that the U.S. is on the verge of World War III. But with who? Well, I'm going to break that down in just a moment, but all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now, let's begin. Now, for the past couple of years, I've talked about possible wars that the United States could be in. We could have easily went to war with Russia, and we still could. We could have easily gone to war with China over the whole COVID situation, and we still could. We're very close to going to a war with Iran because of what's happening over in Israel. But I was reading a few emails today, just this morning, and somebody sent me this very interesting article, and I want to read this to you because, again, I think this is just the beginning of what we're about to see. Look at this. It says, U.S. ally says it expects America to intervene if China tries to take a rusting World War II warship in the South China Sea. It says, as pressure builds in the South China Sea amid frequent clashes, the Philippines is drawing a line. Should China take a rusted warship outpost marking Manila's territory, the Philippines would expect U.S. intervention. Okay. That was the article that was sent to me. And again, you can see it's from 4 days ago. But what I thought was interesting about this article is after you read it, like what kind of details they give you, what they're discussing. But then it led me down a rabbit hole. Look at this. It says the U.S. Navy is planning for possible war by 2027. That's in about 2 years, when China expects it will be ready to invade Taiwan, according to U.S. Admiral. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of this article in just a second. This is from Business Insider, but keep in mind what happened back in December of 2023, almost a year ago. President Xi Jinping warned President Biden during a summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. The expectations were they were going to try to reunify Taiwan with China by 2028. It will be sometime between 2025, which we're almost there, to 2028. But here's the big thing. Who is the president of the United States going to be at that time? If it's former President Donald Trump, experts believe that China will not try to reunify mainland China with Taiwan. But if it's Kamala Harris or somebody else, then they could easily go after Taiwan. Now, I want to read you a little bit of this article from Business Insider. Look at this right here. It says the U.S. Navy is preparing for possible war by 2027, with China in focus, according to Admiral Lisa Franchetti. She outlined a 7-goal plan for the U.S. Navy, including having 80% of its forces ready to fight. Here's what you need to keep in mind, though. The United States has been sending a lot of our resources to Ukraine to help with the war with Russia. We've also been sending a lot of resources to Israel to help them with their war with Hamas and Hezbollah. That's a big one now. Experts are currently saying right now that they don't believe that the war in the Middle East is actually going to continue. But here's what I think is interesting. Look at this right here. It says Israel's clash with Hezbollah strains U.S. effort to prevent a wider war. It says the absence of a full-blown war in Lebanon has been touted as a core achievement, but now Washington's grip on the crisis appears more tenuous than ever. Yeah. Again, a lot of issues happening right now. But I want to show you one other thing. Look at this right here. It says Air Force braces for new nuclear war scenarios. With more nuclear players and weapons around the world, U.S. forces need to be ready, a top service leader says. It says right here, what if, God forbid there was a low-yield nuclear weapon used in Europe tomorrow. Goes on to say, or what if there was a demonstration of nuclear use or a nuclear test? What if we had to adapt to Indo-PACOM region fight because a nuclear power had a red line that meant we couldn't fly in certain areas? These are the kind of things that our warfighters need to understand from the beginning. It doesn't need to be just at the presidential level with no other discussions. Okay. But again, this is the issue. Tensions around the world are heightened. According to experts, they say there has been no other time in history where tensions were this high. But here's the other issue. An expert says historically, when countries are struggling financially, and let's just think what countries are struggling right now economically. The United States, yes, our economy is booming right now. It's doing fairly well, but we also have additional inflation, even though our current inflation rate is 2.5%, according to official reports. Non-official reports say it's much higher than that. Just car insurance alone is up like 16%. But keep this in mind. Historically, when countries are struggling financially, they are more likely to go to war. Why? Sometimes the reasons are politically motivated. Other times, the countries are trying to take advantage of another country's resources. For instance, the United States, when we first went into Iraq, okay, or Afghanistan, why were we there? Was it because of the strikes on the World Trade Center back on September 11, 2001? Or, and again, they say that was why we were there. Well, why were we there for so long? Why were we there even after we were able to get Osama bin Laden back in the Obama administration? Why were we still there? Why did we just get pulled out when President Biden did it? And some argue that he didn't even do a good job. Many say it was because of the oil. That's why we were there. So again, we go to war to take advantage of another country's resources. Try to seize those resources and take them as our own. Think about it right now. What could we use right now? Right? Gold, stuff to make batteries for EV, right? Electric vehicles. We could use just, again, some rare earth minerals. We could use a lot of stuff. Oil, right? Cobalt. The list goes on and on. And so right now, that's why experts are saying there is a heightened chance of a war coming because the United States could be dipping into a recession or a potential depression. And if that happens, again, historically, it makes sense to go after another country's resources. Instead of trying to just turn our economy around all of a sudden, let's use our resource as a military, and let's go into another country. Let's find a way, find a reason to go. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen moving forward, but the one thing I can tell you is that the United States is now preparing for what could come out of China. Because keep in mind what China's going through. It's not just a U.S. problem. China has a real estate issue. Okay? China has a financial problem as well. Could China decide to go and invade another country like Taiwan to take over their resources? Well, the answer is yes. Look at this. It says Navy prepares for China conflict with newly announced strategy. It says the Chinese Communist Party has made clear its intentions to bolster its military in preparation for actions against Taiwan by 2030. Okay, here's the reason why the date keeps changing from 2025 to 2028 to potentially 2030. The new president, whoever it may be, because we know President Biden will not be seeking a second term. So the new president will step in sometime in January in 2025. And that will be the new president for the next at least 4 years. So if that's 2025, by 2029, that president would be done if they only seek one term. If it's former President Donald Trump, he can only seek one term because he's already served 4 years in his first term. So what it looks like to experts is that China is preparing for, if Donald Trump were to win this upcoming election, then when he is out of office, that is when they would decide to invade Taiwan. Again, that's just what we're hearing at this time. But other experts believe that the United States is ill prepared for what's coming. We see a war on the horizon. We see tough economic times here in the US, again, on the horizon. But are we prepared for any of this? I don't know. All I can tell you right now is there's a lot of tensions, there's a lot of speculation about what could happen. But the one thing I can promise you is I will be here every step of the way and I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. But as of today, that is what we know. So again, thank you guys for watching, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.